The Galactic Deathworld Summit was the most prestigious event in the 10 quadrants, drawing species from across the universe who prided themselves on surviving the most hostile environments imaginable. More prestigious, more deadly. Each cycle, representatives from apex predator species would gather to compete on a designated death world, showcasing their evolutionary advantages and proving their species' superiority. This cycle's champions were the Cthar, massive genetically enhanced predators with exoskeletons that could withstand acid rain and plasma blasts. Their hulking frames housed secondary backup organs, and their limbs ended in serrated claws capable of slicing through titanium. The Cthar delegation, led by Warlord Grok, had dominated the previous 3 summits with ruthless efficiency. High Proctor Forlag supervised the oversight committee from their orbital station above Vortis 7, this cycle's chosen death world. Forlag was a 9-foot-tall insectoid with a carapace that gleamed under the station's lights. Despite overseeing an event dedicated to death and survival, Forlag maintained an almost comically serious demeanor, reciting regulations with religious fervor. The 457th Galactic Deathworld Summit shall commence in exactly 3 rotations, Forlag announced to the committee, mandibles clicking rhythmically. All participating species have been registered and... A junior technician interrupted, voice quavering. High Proctor, there appears to be a discrepancy in the registration system. Forlag's compound eyes narrowed to pinpricks of annoyance. Explain. A new species has been added to the participant list. They're called humans from Sol 3. Classification, Grade 1 soft tissue hunters. The committee chamber erupted in chittering laughter. Humans were known throughout the galaxy primarily for 3 things: unnecessarily complicated coffee orders, an invasive species called cats that they'd spread to 17 colonies, and reality television programming that somehow managed to be simultaneously primitive and addictive. Clearly a system error, Forlag dismissed, or some technician's idea of humor. Remove them immediately. The technician's tentacles writhed nervously. That's just it, High Proctor. The entry was authenticated using proper protocols. According to regulations, we cannot remove a properly registered species once the pre-summit phase has begun. Forlag's exoskeleton pilot. Impossible. Humans are barely spacefaring. They wouldn't last 30 seconds on a Grade 7 death world like Vortis 7. Word spread quickly throughout the galactic community. Betting odds against human survival skyrocketed. The Cthar were particularly amused. Warlord Grok released a public statement that simply read, "Will consume humans with fermented berry sauce. Tender meat requires acid marinade." Meanwhile, on Earth, the selection of representatives for the Deathworld Summit proceeded through a combination of lottery and reality show competition. The producers had marketed it as Survivor, Extreme Edition, with a vague promise of interstellar cultural exchange. The final team consisted of 4 humans who had no idea what they were truly in for. Team leader Sarah Jenkins was a former park ranger with a preternatural sense of direction and survival instincts honed by 20 years in some of Earth's most remote wilderness areas. What she lacked in size, she made up for in resourcefulness and unflappable calm. The team's botanical expert was Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a plant scientist whose dangerous hobby of extreme gardening had taken him to environment from the Sahara to the Arctic in search of resilient plant species. His laboratory had developed several hybrid plants that could survive nearly anywhere on Earth. Maya Singh was their engineer, a woman who could jury-rig practically anything with enough duct tape and optimism. Her undergraduate thesis on adaptive technology in resource-scarce environments had won 3 international awards and caught the attention of both NASA and SpaceX. Rounding out the team was Dave Danger O'Malley, an adventure sports vlogger whose claim to fame was surviving situations that should have killed him through a combination of dumb luck and surprising ingenuity. His GoPro was practically a 5th appendage. The human team's communications with the summit committee bewildered the aliens entirely. They asked about Wi-Fi passwords, snack options, and whether they should pack sunscreen. When informed they would be competing against the galaxy's deadliest predators, Sarah Jenkins simply asked if they should bring their own first aid kits or if medical supplies would be provided. They think it's a game show, one committee member whispered to Fourlag. They don't understand they're being sent to die. Fourlag's mandibles clicked anxiously. The regulations are clear. If they arrive, they must be allowed to compete. 3 days later, the human delegation arrived at the summit station in a retrofitted Earth shuttle that the docking technicians regarded with the same horror one might view a child's crayon drawing of a spaceship. The airlock cycled open to reveal the 4 humans, dressed in hiking gear, carrying backpacks, gardening tools, camera drones, and several packages of instant noodles. "Greetings, fellow competitors," Sarah called out, waving enthusiastically. The assembled alien representatives either stared in shock or actively recoiled. Dave immediately began recording. "What's up, Earth fans? We've just arrived at the space station, and check out these awesome alien dudes. That one has, like, 4 mouths. Hey, my man, can I get close up?" The Draxian warrior he approached hissed in confusion, acidic defense fluids beginning to secrete from its skin pores. Maya wandered over to a control panel and began examining it with professional interest. "Your power distribution system is fascinating. Have you considered integrating a secondary backup? I could sketch some ideas." Kenji had somehow already found the station's hydroponics bay and was cooing over alien plant specimens. The cellular structure must be incredibly resilient. "Do you mind if I take a sample?" Sarah attempted to establish diplomatic relations by using park ranger hand signals, which only confused the aliens further. The Cthar delegation simply ignored the humans entirely, considering them beneath notice. High Proctor Fourlag watched the chaos unfold with a growing sense of dread. Perhaps they'll withdraw once they understand the true nature of the competition, they murmured hopefully. But the humans showed no signs of withdrawing. Instead, they spent their time before deployment asking bizarre questions about Vortis 7's climate, researching indigenous species through the station's database, and modifying their equipment in ways that made the station engineers nervous. The day of deployment arrived. One by one, the competing teams were loaded into drop pods and launched toward different sectors of Vortis 7's swampy jungle terrain. The viewing screens on the station displayed immediate chaos as pods landed and teams emerged to face the planet's dangers. A team of silicon-based warriors from the Draken system were immediately consumed by a giant pitcher plant. Acid-breathing predators from Nexus 9 were electrocuted when they landed in a pool inhabited by electric leeches. A particularly arrogant collective consciousness of gaseous entities drifted into a gravity inversion zone and was scattered across 3 square kilometers. The human pod landed off course, missing its designated landing zone by several kilometers. Fortunately, this meant they touched down in an area that was merely extremely dangerous rather than immediately lethal. "Well, that was bumpy," Sarah remarked as they climbed out of the cracked pod. "Everyone okay?" Dave was already recording. First impressions of alien Deathworld. Humid, smells like rotten eggs, and those trees look like they want to kill us. "Awesome." Sarah immediately took charge. "Maya, see what you can salvage from the pod." Kenji, preliminary assessment of plant life. What's going to try eating us, and what might be edible. Dave, send up a drone for reconnaissance, but keep it low and quiet. I'm going to find us water. Within hours, the humans had established a surprisingly efficient camp. Sarah had located a freshwater stream by following the flight patterns of what Dave had dubbed murder hornets from hell. Massive insectoid creatures with double stingers that fortunately seemed more interested in drinking than attacking, if approached carefully. Kenji had identified several tuber-like plants that, once thoroughly processed to remove toxins, provided a starchy food source. He'd also discovered that the sap from a particular blue-veined tree repelled the blood-sucking flying creatures that swarmed at dusk. Maya had constructed a water filtration system from pod debris and giant leaves, as well as a rudimentary shelter elevated between 3 massive tree trunks. She'd even modified some of Kenji's gardening tools into makeshift weapons, turning a weed sprayer into a flamethrower using fuel from the pod's emergency kit. Dave had established a perimeter of surveillance using his drones, which provided early warning of approaching predators. His constant vlogging, "Hello, Deathworld dwellers," had the unexpected benefit of drawing out lurking predators, revealing their positions, and allowing the team to prepare. As night fell on Vortis 7, the human camp was remarkably secure compared to most first-day competitors. The Oversight Committee watched in bewilderment. "They haven't died," Forlag stated, mandibles twitching in confusion. "Why haven't they died?" A junior analyst replied. "They're avoiding direct confrontation with apex predators, using environmental knowledge instead of brute force. But they're just soft, squishy beings with no natural weapons," protested another committee member. "They should be dead." The second day brought new challenges. A six-legged predator the size of a rhino approached their camp at dawn, attracted by the scent of their food stores. Instead of attempting to fight it, the humans implemented a series of diversionary tactics. Maya constructed a simple trip-wire system that triggered flashbang devices she'd cobbled together from drone parts. Sarah identified the creature's poor eyesight and used this knowledge to create patterns of movement that confused it. Kenji applied his repellent sap liberally around their camp perimeter. When the creature finally lost interest and lumbered away, the humans celebrated with packets of instant noodles. "The way they cooperate is unsettling," noted a committee observer. "They compensate for individual weaknesses through group coordination." Meanwhile, the humans had inadvertently adopted a small, six-eyed furry creature that Dave named Sparky after feeding it some ramen noodles. The creature turned out to be extremely territorial and began warning them of approaching dangers with a distinctive chirping sound. It also showed surprising aggression toward anything that threatened its humans. On the third day, the humans had their first direct encounter with another competitor team. A wounded Xyler, a scholar-athlete from an insectoid civilization, had fallen into a quicksand bog near their camp. After a brief debate about the wisdom of helping a competitor, Sarah insisted they couldn't leave a sentient being to die. Using vines and Maya's makeshift pulley system, they extracted the grateful Xyler, who regarded them with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "Why assist competitor?" the Xyler asked, compound eyes blinking rapidly. "Against summit protocols. We're not really here to win anything," Sarah explained as Kenji applied some of his medicinal plant paste to the Xyler's wounded limb. "We thought this was a cultural exchange program." The Xyler's translator struggled to process this information. "Cultural exchange? This is death competition. Only strongest survive." Dave laughed, filming the interaction. "Dude, we're just happy to be here. Though if this is like Survivor, I'm totally making it to the final tribal council." Later that day, the humans accidentally led a Cathar patrol into disaster when Dave's noisy drone operation attracted the attention of a cave of spore bats, aggressive creatures that attacked any disturbance to their nest with clouds of paralytic spores. The Cathar warriors were quickly overwhelmed while the humans, warned by Sparky moments before, managed to retreat to safety. The galactic audience was now utterly captivated. Betting odds were fluctuating wildly. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving in their own strange way. Instead of conquering territory like most competitors, they were establishing a comfortable camp, exploring, and even gardening. Kenji had started a small plot of hybrid earth plants, incorporating the edible tubers and medicinal flora he'd discovered. Warlord Grok of the Cathar was not amused. After receiving reports of his advanced scouts being incapacitated by spore bats, he decided to handle the human problem personally. This primitive species was making a mockery of the sacred Deathworld summit, and worse, they were beginning to attract admirers. "I will hunt these humans myself," Grok announced, his voice a rumbling bass that vibrated through the Cathar camp. "Their soft bodies will decorate my trophy wall by nightfall." Armed with bioorganic weapons and wearing enhanced battle armor, Grok led a squad of elite Cathar warriors toward the human camp. They moved with surprising stealth for creatures of their size, following tracks and broken vegetation that the humans had left behind during their explorations. The humans, however, had grown increasingly savvy about Vortis 7's dangers. Sarah had mapped the surrounding terrain in detail, identifying choke points and escape routes. Maya had established a network of simple alarm systems and traps. Kenji had developed more potent biological deterrents from local flora. Dave's drones provided constant aerial surveillance, and Sparky's acute senses gave early warning of approaching threats. When Sparky began chirping frantically late in the afternoon, the humans implemented their defense plan. Instead of fleeing or preparing for direct combat, they executed a strategy specifically designed to exploit the biological weaknesses of their pursuers. As the Cathar patrol approached, they first encountered a series of tripwires that triggered not weapons, but specially designed sound emitters. Maya had discovered that certain high-frequency sounds disoriented the Cathar's sensitive hearing organs, which they relied on for hunting. The warriors stumbled, suddenly unable to locate their prey through audio cues. Next came Kenji's botanical warfare. He had created concentrated pollen bombs from a flowering plant that grew near their camp. When triggered, these released clouds of allergenic particles that affected the Cathar's respiratory systems. The mighty warriors found themselves sneezing uncontrollably, their eyes watering, their sensory inputs overwhelmed. Dave contributed to the chaos by programming his drones to emit bright, flashing lights synchronized with recordings of Earth pop music he'd described as absolutely the worst playlist ever, guaranteed to irritate any species with ears. The combination of visual and auditory assault further disoriented the suffering Cathar. For the final touch, Sarah used emergency flares to ignite pockets of swamp gas that Maya had identified and collected. The resulting controlled explosions weren't particularly dangerous, but created impressive fireballs and thick smoke that completed the Cathar's sensory overload. Warlord Grok, covered in pollen, sneezing violently, temporarily blinded, and with Baby Shark blasting in his ears, retreated in humiliation. His warriors scattered, some falling into the very traps they'd hoped to drive the humans toward. The galactic audience watched in stunned silence, followed by chaotic commentary. Memes of the sneezing Cathar warlord spread across interstellar networks faster than light. High Proctor Forlag collapsed into a chair, exoskeleton pale with stress. They defeated the Cathar. With allergies and bad music, a committee member whispered in awe. The humans celebrated their victory with high fives and instant noodles, seemingly unaware of the paradigm shift they'd just caused in galactic power dynamics. That evening, the Xyler they had rescued earlier approached their camp, having observed their defense from a safe distance. Your methods, illogical but effective, the Xyler noted, introducing itself as Scholar Zix. Not strongest, not fastest, but still survive. How? We're used to not being the strongest or fastest, Sarah explained. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're good at problem solving and adapting. Also, Maya added, we watch a lot of survival shows. Over the next 2 days, the remaining competitors were gradually eliminated through Vortis 7's natural hazards or conflicts with other teams. The human camp, now featuring solar-powered drone chargers, improved filtration systems, and an expanding garden, remained intact. Zix had joined them, contributing knowledge of local fauna in exchange for shelter and the strange comfort of human companionship. The Oversight Committee grew desperate. The Cathar delegation was threatening to withdraw from future summits. Sponsors were confused by the unexpected popularity of the soft, technologically primitive species. Worst of all, regulations prevented the committee from directly intervening. There is one option, Forlag finally declared during an emergency session. The Planetary Purge Protocol. The committee members shifted uncomfortably. The purge was a measure of last resort, accelerating environmental hazards or deploying a biomechanical cleaner to reset the competition if it became hopelessly deadlocked. It had been used only twice in the summit's long history. The humans leave us no choice, Forlag decided. Activate the cleaner. Down on Vortis 7, Zix received an encrypted warning through their academic network. Danger approaching, they informed the humans. Committee has activated PurgeBot, designed to eliminate all competitors, restart summit. Why would they do that? Kenji asked, looking up from his garden. Humans not dying, Disrupts natural order, Zix explained. Machine coming. Unstoppable. Sarah gathered the team. Nothing's unstoppable. Maya, what are we dealing with? Zix described the cleaner. A massive biomechanical construct combining the worst features of tanks and predatory animals, with adaptive programming to counter any species' defensive strategies. It would hunt them relentlessly until the competition was reset. We can't outfight it, Sarah concluded. So we outsmart it. The humans formulated their plan quickly. Sarah had identified an area of geological instability about 2 kilometers from their camp, a field of hidden sinkholes and geothermal vents. Kenji had been studying a particularly corrosive fungus that degraded even metallic substances with remarkable speed. Maya theorized that they could overload the cleaner's sensory systems using basic principles of Earth electronic warfare, creating overwhelming false inputs through Dave's equipment. As the Purgebot approached, they put their desperate plan into action. Dave's remaining drones created a pattern of movement designed to lure the machine toward the unstable area. Maya had rigged a broadcasting system that cycled rapidly through electromagnetic frequencies, creating interference patterns that confused targeting systems. Kenji deployed his corrosive fungal cultures along the path, weakening the ground structurally while simultaneously creating hazards for the machine's locomotion systems. Sarah positioned herself to spring the final trap, using her knowledge of weight distribution and terrain. The Purgebot came into view, a nightmarish combination of metal, synthetic muscle, and weaponry. It processed the drone decoys, the conflicting sensor readings, the unusual fungal growth, and calculated its approach. As it advanced, its massive weight triggered precisely what Sarah had anticipated. Dave recorded everything, narrating with astonishing enthusiasm. The killer robot is slipping on Kenji's super mushrooms. It's staggering into the sinkhole zone. Maya's crazy techno music is totally scrambling its sensors. And, oh wow, the ground is collapsing. A massive geothermal vent, destabilized by the machine's weight and the structural damage from the fungi, erupted beneath the Purgebot. The machine was engulfed in superheated steam and mud before disappearing into the planet's crust. Dave turned the camera to his own face, grinning widely. And that, folks, is how you deal with a killer robot apocalypse. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The Oversight Committee stared at their monitoring screens in disbelief. The Cleaner, a failsafe designed by the best minds in the galaxy, had been defeated by garden fungi, bad music, and drones. The competition is over, Forlag announced, voice hollow with defeat. The humans and Xyler are the last competitors standing. Protocol dictated that the winners be brought to the station to claim their prize, traditionally territory, technology, or resource rights. When the bedraggled but triumphant humans arrived in the committee chamber, with Zix and Sparky in tow, High Proctor Forlag steeled themselves for the request. As victors of the 457th Galactic Deathworld Summit, you may claim your reward. What do you desire? A planetary system? Advanced weapons technology? Genetic enhancements? The humans conferred briefly before Sarah stepped forward. We don't want Vortis 7. Relief wäschet over Vorlag. Then what do you claim? Exclusive broadcasting rights to the next Deathworld Summit. Galactic-wide marketing rights for Survivor, Galactic Edition, and a lifetime supply of instant noodles. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Forlag's mandibles clicked in confusion. You want media rights and noodles, Dave added helpfully. The good kind with the little flavor packets. In the cycles that followed, humans became the dominant force in galactic entertainment. Dave's vlog channel became the most watched feed in recorded history. Earth reality TV formats spread like a benign cultural virus. High Proctor Forlag retired to raise space goats on a quiet moon. The Cthar were forced to attend emotional regulation seminars after their public meltdown over human victory merchandise. The real big mistake wasn't inviting humans to the Deathworld Summit. It was underestimating their ability to turn absolutely anything into content and commerce. As the next summit approached, Sarah, Kenji, Maya, Dave and their new business partner Zix pitched Deathworld Home Makeover to a horrified Galactic Network executive. Sparky, now sporting a custom GoPro harness, chirped enthusiastically from Dave's shoulder. "Trust me," Sarah said, smiling confidently. "Everyone loves a good redemption story, especially when it involves dangerous plants and creative use of duct tape." The executive's tentacles curled in resignation. The age of human entertainment had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.